Cashflow Diary Podcast, episode 101.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast, the podcast that teaches you insider tips, tactics, and strategies for creating leverage streams of cash flow into your life. Learn from top-performing entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and thought leaders from across the globe as they share their secrets to success. Like what you learn on this and other Cashflow Diary podcast episodes? Go to learninvestingnow.com and sign up to receive powerful tips and information that will help you succeed as an entrepreneur and investor. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, educator, speaker, author, and master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game, Jay Massey.
All right, and welcome to another episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Massey. Guess what? We're going to talk about money. You're like, what? Really? I would have never guessed. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. But we're going to talk about it today from a completely different aspect than we normally do. A lot of times we invest a significant amount of time saying, hey, here's how you can earn more, earn it passively, do it this way, etc. And many of the people that you have been meeting, they're experts at helping us do that, right? Well, today we're going to tackle it from a completely different perspective, and today's guest is definitely an expert in the cash flow world, which I absolutely love. He's been featured on U.S. News, CNN Money, as well as Bankrate.com. What's awesome is that he's going to come here and share his information with you. Now, if this is the first time you've been here, here's what you're going to do. You're also going to go over to learninvestingnow.com because, see, there are some basics when it comes to learning how to be an investor. And if you'd like to learn how to become an investor in 30 days or less, and that's why you're going over to learninvestingnow.com. And for doing so, I'm going to teach you how to do that. Got a series of emails and lessons that are going to help you learn to think like an investor, buy like an investor, own like an investor, receive like an investor, and most importantly, do due diligence like an investor, because these are the things that are necessary in today's world for you to become more financially educated and make things happen. Now, today's guest, Chris Miles, he is the cash flow expert. We'll see, right? We're going to test him today. It's going to be awesome. He's a leading authority on how to quickly free up and create cash flow for thousands. Now, here's my point. He's done this for thousands of his clients, entrepreneurs, and others internationally, so he can do it for you. But what's interesting is his approach. And it's one of the things that I remember having been a financial planner. You know, everybody thinks they got a money problem. I think they have an idea problem. And he's going to help you and I today expose how that is. In fact, his average client finds an average of $33,000 per year. Chris, welcome to the show. Please come out and share with us how to find some money.
Absolutely. Glad to.
I mean, oftentimes though, you know, it's you know, the idea of finding money, it's like you make it sound like they just trip over it. It's like under the mattress or something.
It pretty much is.
Oh, okay, sweet. So if we would clean our house more often, we'd find it.
That's right. Yeah, well, in some cases that might be the case, especially when you got 5 kids like I have, right?
5 kids? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You beat me. I only have 4.
All right. Between us, we got a tribe.
Yeah, there. You know, but we at least have maybe a good baseball team. I don't know. It could work out. So before you know, one of the first questions I always like to know is, like, you know, before you were a financial expert, cash flow expert on U.S. News, CNN Money, all these other things, I tend to think of today's entrepreneurs like yesterday's superheroes, you know, Superman, Batman, all these people. They had an origin story. They started somewhere before they put on their tights and started saving people. So what I want to know is, before you started putting on your tights and saving people and helping people find tens of thousands of dollars per year, who was Chris Miles?
Let's see. Chris Miles was the guy that did everything but finance when he was going to school. Yeah, I was a sociology major of all things, with a possible double minor in ballroom dancing and Japanese.
What? Did you say? Okay. So you were all over the place. Is that really what you're trying to tell me?
Oh, it felt pretty focused. I mean, Japanese was just easy because I had lived in Japan for a few years. So that was an easy minor to get, right? But yeah, like I had actually, I went to sociology. I was actually planning to become like a business consultant. Mm-hmm. But when I was about done with school and when I was about to get my bachelor's, I thought, if I'm gonna consult people on their businesses, I should probably have real life business experience.
It's a
And
good
so
idea.
so I actually ended up dropping out of school. I dropped out with one class to go from my bachelor's. Never went back to get it, so I'm a dropout.
Nice.
And I ended up becoming a financial advisor. That was the first opportunity that came my way where I could step into the business world and be an entrepreneur. And did that for 4 years. Really enjoyed helping people. The only problem was I really wasn't helping people. You know, if you look at the traditional financial advice that's out there, it's all about, save more. And if you haven't saved it, even if you saved what they told you to save, if it wasn't enough, it wasn't their fault, it's yours. So you got to save, sacrifice, suffer, don't spend, invest only in stocks, suck, that kind of stuff, right? It's always about, minimizing things. It's always about being cheap and being in scarcity, and that just doesn't work. And after 4 years, I really came to a drastic realization, and it happened when I started to get to know people that were millionaires. I realized that they thought completely the opposite of the way that we think. To give you an example, my brother-in-law was the son of a man who had a lot of auto dealerships here in Utah. In fact, sold those dealerships to the guy that ended up buying the Utah Jazz.
Okay.
And so they were loaded. And I remember going to present to him. And it took me 3 years to even get the confidence as a financial advisor to think that I knew more than him. And when I sat down with him, because that's what all financial advisors do, they've all got big egos. They're like attorneys, right?
Right.
And so I sat down with him and I gave him a presentation, and he said, "Well, that was nice. So let me ask you a question, Chris. You're saying if I just give you 10 grand to play with, you're saying you can make me 12% rate of return," which, because that's back then, I actually believed you could get that. Everybody did. It's more like 7 is the real rate of return, right? So 12%. He's like, "Okay, well, that's $1,200 in a year from 10 grand." I'm like, "That's right." And I'm thinking I've got him in the bag because that's a freaking awesome return, 12%, right?
Right.
And then he turns around and says, "Chris, now I can put 10 grand in my business. I can go put a down payment on a semi truck, turn around and sell it a few months later and make $20,000. So, Chris, why would I invest my money with you?" And and having that major in behavioral science, or BS, I put that almost degree to use, and I said the same thing that every financial advisor will say in that situation, which is, well, you should be diversified. You shouldn't put all your eggs in that one basket. You shouldn't pull your eggs into your business or into your primary investment, like real estate or whatever, right? No, you should spread it out everywhere, primarily into my crap that I'm selling you. It's really what I'm saying, right? And every financial advisor is saying. And he said, "Right. All right, we'll see you later." And that's the thing, is I realized there's a lack of integrity there. I mean, I even went out to lunch with a guy that was in that company a few years later, and he said, "Okay, Chris, what is it you teach differently now today than what you did back then?" Well, I said, "That's pretty simple. Like, let me ask you a question. In the 35 years that you've been a financial advisor, since the late 70s, where have you made the most money? In your business from the commissions you earn selling products, or from the investments you've been recommending to people? Because if anybody's got those investments figured out, it's you."
Right.
And without hesitation, guess what that financial advisor said?
Real estate. No.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. He said his business, right?
Yeah,
He said
right.
I said, that's the difference between you and me. I'm telling people invest in things that have worked for them, which is like in their primary focus of investing or in their businesses. You're telling people invest in things that haven't worked for you in the last 35 years. Therefore, I'm the only one in integrity here.
Right.
So in 2006, I left. I said, "That's it. I'm no longer going to be a deceiver and a liar. I'm actually going to end up just teaching ballroom dancing," because I'm like, I do not want to talk about money ever again, because I was wrong.
Hold on. Did you just say you didn't want to talk about money ever again?
That's what I said. Yeah. I felt so soured by the fact that what I had taught wasn't working. And I saw evidence of it. I saw people from 20, 30 years of financial advice still stressed, worried, broke, that kind of thing, right? Even if they had money, they were still broke mentally,
Right.
They were still stressing like they were broke. And so I realized it wasn't working. And so I said, you know what, I'm just not going to go back to that. I don't know what I'm going to do. I still did things like mortgages. I did a lot with mortgage industry and stuff, but I was just wandering. And so I quit, and that was it. And I realized if I was going to go back to teaching about money, I had to prove it myself. And so I did. I actually, instead of focusing on just accumulating money, because I always believed you had to accumulate like $2 million and live off the interest, which if you do that, you do what financial advisors are recommending right now. They tell you to live off 3% a year. That's like 60,000 a year from 2 million. I mean, who would want to become a millionaire to live in middle class? I mean, seriously.
You could argue that that's still not enough, or even that, but
like,
we're going to get to that later.
Might be 2, right?
Right.
And so that's the problem, is that it just doesn't work. And so I said, all right, I'm going to focus on cash flow instead.
Ooh.
And I did. And what happened is I quit being a financial advisor in March of 06. By July of 06, I was able to retire working like 2 hours a week. So Tim Ferriss, take that. 4 hours was way too much.
I know, right? And here's you said so many things in such a little bit of time. I mean, so the first question though, do you think dropouts just make more money? There should be like a study done. Dropouts versus not.
There should be, huh? I know. I had a friend that wrote a book about college dropouts. Like Bill Gates and Steve Jobs and guys like them. But yeah, it'd be interesting to kind of see just how college dropouts are doing. And I'm presuming these are the college dropouts that are more creative, not the ones that were just lazy, right?
Right. The ones
that drank their way out of college,
right? Or the ones who were waiting for marijuana to become legal so that they could sell it. Something. Exactly. Yeah, not those. I'm talking. Exactly. I'm talking about the ones who dropped out for a reason. Who's like realized I don't want to do this. That was me. I remember. I'm like I just don't want to do this. I don't know what I want to do, but I know it's not that. And so I left. I'm like, ooh, done. And then you were talking about what I call piles versus streams, and because that's what I did too as a financial planner. We were trying to get people to save enough money so that even then it wouldn't be enough, but to put up this really huge pile, versus stream mentality. And when you start focusing on a stream mentality, things get easier. I mean, if you realize, and that's the thing, it's like, how much money do you really need in the bank if you have a stream? And I'm making up numbers just for the sake of this conversation. But let's assume you listening to our voices right now, you had a stream of $10,000 coming in every month, 10,000 US, convert it to whatever currency makes sense for you. If you had $10,000 US coming in every month, could you figure out a way to live on that? And more importantly, if it was coming in every month, how much money did you really, really, really need to have in the bank? I think that's the pivotal question in a lot of ways. So let me ask you this question. Why aren't we taught these things sooner?
Man, I'll tell you, I wish we were. I think, the biggest reason I see is that we've got billions of dollars of marketing of people trying to sell us junk, right? I mean, they're trying to sell us on, think of like, there's certain financial, brokers and people like that where they show you that little green line you got to follow, and don't you dare look at that car, don't you dare buy that car, just keep following that green line. We're going to tell you how to live your life, right? It's always about bondage. I mean, there's so much marketing out there around traditional financial advice that has left people remaining broke. And I truly believe in the next 5 to 10 years, when you see more and more baby boomers get to retirement age, you're going to hear more and more stories about really the 401k scam, right? I mean, just total scams about people that believed in the accumulation mindset, not acceleration mindset, as I call it. There's accumulation money and there's acceleration. And like what you teach, especially with around real estate investing, I mean, that's all about acceleration, right?
Yeah, we call it velocity, but yes, absolutely. We're fast. So when you now you bring up something that I haven't brought up before, but I've heard mentioned many times. I want let's talk about what you mean by the 401k scam, because you brought it up.
Oh, absolutely. And what I mean is this: is that we've been sold a bill of goods since the mid '80s when 401ks became more popular. That we put in X percent, like 10% of our money, and after 20, 30, 40 years, we should be able to retire, right? And I remember working in corporate America. This is right about the time that I was becoming a financial advisor. I was working for a company, and I remember sitting in their 401k meeting taught by the HR representative, who of course has got to be the leading authority in finance, right? And she's telling us, she's like, hey, here's the great thing. You could put in this stuff and you don't even have to think about it. You just throw it in and it just grows and accumulates. And The next thing you know, when you're old, you don't have to worry about you don't pay taxes today. You'll pay them later, but it's okay because when you're old, you'll live off less than you do today.
Right.
And I remember thinking, well, that's a bunch of bull because I can guarantee that you're going to be in a higher tax bracket even if taxes stay the same. Because all you have to do is factor in inflation. And if you realize that you're going to have to spend more money for the same goods to live, even if tax brackets stayed at the same place they are today, which isn't likely, they're more likely to go up. But even if they stay the same, you're going to have to be in a higher tax bracket because you're having to pull out more money. And so because of that, people are told that, oh, there's a tax advantage. No, you're just deferring your taxes to a later date when they're going to be higher taxes. That's smart. On top of that, you're going to be put into these mutual funds that they say will average 10, 12%. And I love Ben Stein. If you know who he is, he's the actor from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Right. He's the guy that has a very monotonous voice.
Right.
His dad was an economist at Harvard. And in fact, he majored in economics at Harvard himself. And when he was a kid, he's talking to his dad in the 1950s about how we're going to run out of food by the 1960s.
Wow.
And his dad said, that's not going to happen. And Ben said, well, yeah, figures don't lie, Dad. He said, figures don't lie, but liars figure. And I've realized when it comes to mutual funds, and when they talk about average returns in the market, people don't realize that average is not real returns. For example, if you have $10,000.
Okay, hold on. I want everybody to understand. Pay attention to what he's about to say right here. This is going to be probably one of those moments that you have a financial epiphany right now. Go ahead, Chris.
You already know where I'm going with this, don't you?
I'm just going to be quiet.
So if you have $10,000 right now, let's just use that number. Say the first year that you have your money in the market, it loses 50%. Say it's like 2008, 2009, right? You lose 50%, you're now down to $5,000, right? You lost half your money. Pretty simple. Now, if you think of it this way, let's say the next year it goes up 100%. So, hey, it recovered. Yay. It's like the last few years. So now it comes up 100%. Well, when you double your money from 5,000, you're back up to 10,000. Now, people would say this would be a 0% rate of return. And that's partly true. Although if you take out the fees that they charge in mutual funds, you probably have more like $9,700, $9,600. But you would say you have a 0% real rate of return. But the average rate of return, if you do the math, and you might have to write on paper, and this almost takes you back to grade school of doing averages, right? You take 100, because you have that positive 100, minus 50, so you're adding the minus 50, that's 50, divided by 2 years, and what's your average return?
Mm-hmm.
It's 25%.
No, it's not.
That's average return, right?
Yeah. I got you. I'm with you.
Yeah.
That's
the average, but that's not the actual. That's not the actual yield, right?
Right.
Definitely not your cash on cash rate of return for sure.
No, it doesn't feel like 25% when you look in the bank account. You're like, what's up?
Exactly. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard people, especially the last 5 years or so, they'll say,
right,
Chris, I'm looking at my 10-year or even my 15 or 20-year average. It's saying I'm positive, but honestly, I've got the same amount in this IRA that I've had before. Well, yeah, because one, they don't take into account the fees they charge you. That's not part of the return that they give you. And secondly, that average and the actual aren't the same. If you think about it, you lose 10%, you need 11.1 to get back to where you were at 0. If you lose 20%, you need 25. Lose 33%, you need 50. You lose 90%, like the Great Depression, you need a 900% rate of return to get back to breaking even again. And think about the averages, how that gets all skewed and thrown off, right? Once you have a negative year, average and actual returns are not the same anymore.
Not at all. Now, if you are slightly challenged by some of these new numbers, math, and figures, understand it's a process for all of us to come to these realizations. And what's really happening right now is that Chris is bringing something to you that could be for the first time, and you're like, okay, because I know what you're thinking. If you're like me, you're like, okay, Chris, I got it. It's not good. So what do we do about it?
Are you tired of letting good cash flow generating ideas go to waste? Go to cashflowdiary.com/ready to apply for a complimentary, yes, that means free, one-on-one breakthrough session. Take action now. Go to cashflowdiary.com/ready. Again, that's cashflowdiary.com/ready. Before we get back to today's episode of the Cashflow Diary podcast, your host, Jay Massey, has some important insights to share with you.
All right. So you're wondering, what are those important insights? And you know what? On this particular episode, it's more of an announcement of an event. I just want to make sure that everybody knows that coming up, going to be doing a cash flow game in the Orange County area. If you want to find out about it, you can go over to just send us an email, info@cashflowdiary.com. And yes, for those of you wondering, we are, yes, getting closer and closer and closer to the release of the audiobook. Progress is being made. We are making it happen, and it's getting exciting over here. I hope you guys are getting as excited as we are. And I appreciate every one of you pre-ordering the book, and those of you who are out there making that happen. If you want to get on that list, send a text message over to 949-682-3565. Again, that's 949-682-3565. The key word is audio, or you can go over to cashflowdiary.com/audio. That way you will also know when the audiobook is coming out. And for those of you who may not remember, there's bonus content never released before, not on any podcast, not in the book. The only way to get it is with the audiobook. Anyway, let's get back to talking about money.
Absolutely. Well, those of you that are in the investing world, this is where you have an advantage. If you've ever had people be naysayers before, this is one, even financial advisors and people like that, this is what you can throw in their face. Because think about this. I mean, the actual return of the market in the last 30 years has been about 7.5%. It's actually higher than it used to be. I used to be quoting, 6.5 to 7 back around 2010, right? But it's gone up a little bit because, markets recovered. Well, still 7.5%. That's only a 3% difference from like the 10.8 that they're telling us, right? But over a 20-year period, that's double. And even over 40 years, it's not even the same. And so you get people like the Dave Ramsey's out there. I got a tweet post that he did that says, if you just put away $100 a month for 40 years at 12% rate of return, notice the crappy return again that he's mentioning. That's not even real.
Right.
Everybody should have it was like $1.176 million. The reality is, actually, after 40 years, that wasn't 1.176. It was like 978,000. So he even got that number wrong. If he even got those returns, but if you lower that number to be like 7%, and you factor that in, the actual number you would have instead of over $1 million would be closer to about 300,000.
Yeah.
Which sounds more like what people are retiring on today, if that much, right? The average 401k balance right now for somebody who's about 64 is now up to about 130,000 or so.
Well, that's a lot better than it used to be.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
It used to be way worse just about 5 years ago, right?
Yeah, so that's good.
So the answer here is stop focusing on accumulating money, because the reality is you can't save enough in those kind of vehicles to actually live off the interest like they always tell you to do. And they tell you to do that because they want you to live off the interest, because you don't touch principal, and that means they can leverage your money and make cash flow off of it while you're sitting there, let it accumulate.
Now, but Chris, isn't it also true? I mean, I'm just curious to hear what you would say, is that we can't save it faster than they can print it either.
That's true. You got inflation going on and everything else. Yeah, I mean, even if you make a 7% return on the market, there's a great site called shadowstats.com.
Oh, yeah.
You've probably seen that one. But but pretty much he said that whatever the inflation rate they say on the consumer price index, at about 7%, you'll probably get the real rate of inflation. But here's the thing I would add to that as well. On top of that, so even if they say the rate's 3%, it's probably closer to 10. I've noticed that if to be conservative, about every 10 to 12 years, your lifestyle needs to double, or your amount of money it costs you to live that same lifestyle needs to double. That's way different. When you think of that, that's a much different return than if you're thinking, oh, well, I'm getting whatever the market's giving. Well, great. The market's pretty much kept up with inflation. Congratulations. But again, the problem still comes down to you don't have cash flow from it. It's always about accumulating money and then trying to live off the interest because they want to use your money.
Yep.
And so you find yourself in a losing battle.
Every day. So now we've described the problem. How do we fix it?
Well, there's two ways to do it. when we're talking about cash flow here, one which you address a lot of, and I love because this is one of my favorite topics, is how to make more money, and not just make more in an account that you can't touch, like an IRA or 401k. I'm talking about how do you increase your cash flow? What are ways to increase that income? Because income is limitless. Expenses, although I do address that too, and we'll talk about that as well. The problem with expenses is you can only go down so far before you live in a cardboard box, right? We don't want people living off $1,000 or $2,000 a month. This is why my ebook online is called Beyond Rice and Beans: 7 Secrets to Free Up Cash Today. Because I don't want you just to live off rice and beans. I don't want you to be cheap and just not enjoy life. I believe life is meant to be enjoyed. Money is meant to be used. And I know that we're all stewards of that, and how well we use it will create the life that we want, right?
Indeed. And just as a side note, last couple times I was in the Caribbean, rice and beans is actually pretty good. And there's a difference between rice and beans and rice. And I implore you to go figure that out. I know I learned that, but it was actually good. But yeah, I don't want it every day. You're right.
That's right. Well, and here's what I mean. Like, I used to listen to Dave Ramsey's show a lot. And it's funny, whenever I talk to investors and business owners, people that know what they're doing and made money, they always laugh when I mention his name. And the reason is this: is I listened to his show one time, and this woman got on, and she was depressed. I mean, just absolutely just distraught. And she said, okay, well, here's what's happened over the last couple of years. I've paid off about $60,000 debt. Might have been more than that. Might have been about $70,000. She's like, I've paid only about $60,000 or $70,000. I still have another $90,000 left on my mortgage. I'm doing everything you've done in the book. I'm doing this. I'm doing this. I'm living off rice and beans every day. And right when she said that, he stopped her and he said, wait. You're living off rice and beans? She said, well, yeah. You tell people to live off rice and beans. And remember, I'm listening to this. I'm not sure if it was live or pre-recorded, but either way, it was pretty shocking. And he said, he starts laughing at her. Almost mockingly, which most financial people on the media do because they're idiots and they like to, make you feel like crap, right?
Right.
And so he just starts laughing at her. He says, "No, that's not what I mean at all." He's like, "That's metaphorical." He's like, "Yeah, maybe you live off rice and beans. Yeah, I'm going to eat rice and beans with my tacos, but I'm going to eat more than just rice and beans. I don't just say let's live off rice and beans. That's ridiculous."
Right.
And there was dead air time for about 5 or 10 seconds. She didn't say a word. And the only thing you hear all of a sudden is, "Oh, well, I did." I mean, imagine that. 2 years being cheap, living off rice and beans, literally living off rice and beans, because that's what he teaches. And I don't think that should be the case. This is why I believe that income, first and foremost, find ways to increase your income is key. And the key behind that is that understanding the real principle behind money, which is dollars will follow the value you create for other people.
Ooh, say that again.
Dollars follow value is the short term, or dollars will follow value that you create for other people.
Love it.
If you think about it, we only get paid when somebody values whatever you're offering more than the money. So in real estate, the reason you get paid X amount of dollars is because they say, I would much rather have a place to live like this than to give up that $1,200 a month or $1,500 or $600 or whatever it might be, right?
Right.
They're basically saying, like, I value this place more than that money.
Yep.
And I've noticed a lot of people, even in investing, I mean, in business, this is key too. If you're in business, this is like a magic principle. If you start to realize that it's always about how you provide people what they want and deliver more value if you want to receive more money in return. But investing, it's no different. If you're a real investor, not a phony gambler, as I refer to them, right? Where you're actually focusing on not the transaction and not just the investment, but the people behind the investment that are writing the checks. Because no house will write you a check. It's always a person, right?
Yep.
So how do you provide value for them in a way that money will come in return? Are you providing value in that home that allows them to say, you know what, I want to pay you even more than maybe what maybe the market will say it goes for, because you're offering X, Y, and Z.
Yep.
Or you might just say, you know what, I'm just going to offer the standard and I'm going to expect the standard. And that's just it, right?
Yep.
If you want to earn more money, you got to find ways to deliver more value. Even I love hearing stories, in real estate, especially because, I mean, back in 2006, 2007, it seemed like everybody in my circles were doing it, which was, hey, if we run out of money, great. Somebody else has got money. Let's leverage it. Let's create credit partners. Let's, all this kind of stuff, and finance partners and partner up on these deals. And it was great because it taught that in order to really make a deal work, you had to find out how to make something valuable. How do you find that win-win, right?
Yep.
How do you appeal to their best interest? Because we all have self-interest. If we appeal to the people's self-interest, money comes back very easily. So we started doing that and focusing on that. And so I stopped. So what got me to retire in 2006 so quickly, 4 months after quitting being a financial advisor, was because I started asking the question, okay, how can I create a win-win for somebody? How can I create value in a way that money will come back as a natural byproduct? So for me specifically, what I did that in is I actually did that through like affiliate type of relationships, where there's people still asking me financial questions. I would say, honestly, this is great, but let me teach you something else I've been learning. And I would teach them a little bit. And then I'd say, hey, go do that mortgage. I don't even want to deal with the mortgage. Go talk to this guy. He's a nerdy guy that sits behind a desk and loves that. Talk to him. He'll do all the paperwork for you. And then I'd split the deal 50-50. He would do all the underwriting, all the stuff for me. And next thing I know, I'm getting paid $1,000, $1,500 a month just from that. I thought, well, that was dang easy. Who else could I do that with?
Right.
And so I started getting really creative. I thought, ooh, well, maybe I could do that with like a life insurance agent, because I was about to get rid of my life insurance license. But I'm like, well, hey, I know this agent. He understands how to use this in coordination with real estate and make it really work and make money twice as fast. So, hey, I'm going to refer people to him. And so I started doing that. And pretty soon I'm referring people to other businesses, even ones that aren't financially related. And they'd either send me like referral checks, like marketing kickbacks or whatever, or we split the deal because I was licensed or whatever it was. And next thing I know, I'm making like $4,000 or $4,500 a month. And I was working a couple hours a week at most. And that was a big epiphany because I only had like $2,000 in savings, maybe a lot more after that.
Yeah, right.
And so I was actually at a point where I said, oh my gosh, like I could actually stop working. I could stop. I was doing some stock coaching at the time and teach people how to trade stocks and options. Like I could technically stop doing that. And then I realized I'm 28 years old and I'm bored. Like I don't know what to do with my time. And so I had to, really understand what I was going to do. And when I started to make that work, that's when the passion to teach people came from. And then I started to, do things with that, where now I'm coaching people on how to do that within their businesses or with their investments and how to make everything work together and flow and create cash flow through it all. So that's kind of where my story came from. And so long story short, it's always about how do we provide value for other people. That's where the real money comes back from. If you understand that as an investor or a business owner, it's amazing how easy making money becomes.
Yes. Be careful though. We might have them thinking that they could do it.
Yeah, that's horrible.
Wouldn't want that,
No,
because we have to give the money to the all-knowing financial planners first. Anyway, I poke fun. So what would you say? You have exposure to a number of different people. What would you say is the number one thing that gets in the way of someone being able to make these switches from the mentality of the accumulation mindset to the acceleration mindset?
Oh, wow. How much time do we have for a break?
Yeah, well, about 10 minutes.
Okay,
but
good.
Go for it.
All right. Well, I think the biggest switch, for me, it just had to happen. I just had to put faith in it, really. One, I saw proof of it in other people's lives. I saw that people did it, and they had savings too, and they accumulated a lot, but that was also because they focused on cash flow. And I love books. You can't deny the classic Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which is kind of like the mantra of us that teach about cash flow, right?
Right.
He really inspired a lot of us to do those kind of things. And
Indeed.
So that's a great book to go to to see that happen. But, for me, it was really seeing that work. Is that if you really think of your life, and here's what I'd have you do. I would have you just kind of picture in your mind right now. Think about this, is imagine what your life would look like if all of a sudden your income now dropped about $2,000 a month from where it is currently. So all of a sudden you're getting paid $2,000 less per month. Well, what kind of emotions are being stirred up right now? What kind of feelings are you having? What kind of things do you see yourself doing or not doing? Or is it more stressful? Are you having a more heated conversations with your partner?
Mm.
That kind of stuff. Are you telling your kids again that you can't go to Disneyland, or you can't afford it, and that kind of stuff? Now, if you erase that from your mind, get back to where you are today, you're probably like, that was awesome. Grateful to be in a better place, or than that at least. Now, imagine the flip side. Imagine having an extra $2,000 or $3,000 a month. Now, how does that feel? What is it? What kind of conversation are you having with your spouse or your partner now, with your kids? What kind of feelings are coming up? What kind of possibilities opened up now that maybe you would cancel out before, even in your current situation? You're saying, man, I got an extra 2,000 or 3,000 a month. I can now go do this. Ooh, I could go do this. Oh my gosh, now the banks are going to love me because I can go leverage my credit more, and all the kind of stuff that would pop in, right? I mean, that's the difference. And if you think about it, that was like 2,000 or 3,000 bucks a month. That's not much. That's $36,000 a year. That's not $1 million bucks. Right. And I've noticed people that even with the people with $1 million bucks they don't feel any better off, especially if it's tied up. If it's in IRAs and 401ks where they get their hand slapped for touching it, like they're asking mom and dad for the car keys to their own car. It's not fun. And I've seen people do that. In fact, I'll tell you, I had a chiropractor I used to work with out in the Midwest, and he had $500,000 sitting in an IRA. And I told him, I said, hey, if we go and we actually do some things here, we go and we want to consolidate some loans, refinance, pay off some other loans, do some other things that would actually free up some cash flow to the tune of about $50,000 a year. So over $4,000 a month. And the cool thing is, it only required $100,000. So he has $500,000 sitting in an IRA, and I said, hey, you know what? Let's have you talk to my investment advisor on my team. Let's do a little coordination on this. But I said, what's cool is that we can actually just use $100,000 from this IRA as a possibility, and that $100,000 can free up $50,000 a year. That's 50% cash on cash rate of return, right there.
Right.
And the funny thing is, what he said to me after that blew my mind. And he was 60. He's about 60. He was about 62 at this time. He said, "Yeah, but Chris, how am I going to retire?" And I'm like, okay, let me repeat this.
Right.
$100,000 makes $50,000 a year more cash flow than you're experiencing today. Yeah, but what do I have to show for retirement? I got to retire.
Right.
And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I finally took his wife, because I don't know what it is. Women tend to get this faster. So his wife pretty much verbally slapped him across the head. At least that's what I imagined, because he was in Wisconsin. I was in Utah, right?
Right.
And she's like, honey, you still got $400,000 in the account. You got plenty of money. And it's $50,000 a year. And what's cool is that he finally got it, right? He was still scared. He's like, well, I don't know. That seems to not, that's not what I've been told on TV.
I know.
That's not what Susie Orman said.
Oh boy.
And I know there's another bad name I just dropped.
I was wondering how long that was going to take, but now I know. It's all good. It's all good. Keep going.
But yeah. So I mean, he did it, right? About a month or so later, he's got this $50,000 extra in his life, an extra $4,000 a month or so. Now, what's cool is because he realized that cash flow wasn't as tight anymore. He had his business. His business was kind of getting tighter and tighter over those years. He was getting more and more desperate and stressed, right? This is where the emotional part really comes in. And what happened, though, is now he has $50,000 extra a year. He kind of relaxed. He said, you know what? I don't need the money. I'm actually okay. Mm-hmm. And so he relaxed in his business. And the cool thing is that he started making an extra $1,000 to $2,000 more a month,
right?
Just because he relaxed. Right. He wasn't as desperate for money anymore. He wasn't repelling people with his business breath, Did
you say business breath? That's funny.
I did. I call it business breath. If you've ever been to a networking event or something like that with other people that they're just vomiting on you, throwing cards at you left and right, like you just feel icky, right? And that's what I mean by that. They feel desperate, and because they are desperate, and you don't want to do business with them. And when people relax and they become confident, you naturally are attracted to them. You want to do business with them, even if you don't know what they do, right? and that's where it got him to. And so he started. He was making an extra $70,000 more a year within the same year, just because he was able to experience cash flow in a different way. Nice. And so your question right there is, how is it? Just try it out. Find ways to either increase income, decrease expenses. I prefer both. Create that extra spread. And you'll feel different freedom. You'll feel way better than you do just stuffing money in a 401k. In fact, if you have been doing that because your friend or your brother-in-law or whoever is telling you that's what you need to do because that's what people that are going to retire do, I would challenge that and say, no, let's try not even putting money in the IRA or 401k. What if you just kept it? What if you put it into savings instead? Just kept it in your own personal pocket. You kept it in your control, even if it didn't get invested anywhere. I guarantee you'll feel very different than you did before when you were locking it away with lock and key that you can't touch.
Yeah, this is you're hitting on so many points about how what we're taught, just following patterns without even understanding why, and all the things that are necessary in order to make these changes long lasting. So let me ask you this: what would you say is the number one way that you tend to recommend for people to A, increase their income, and then B, decrease their expenses? Where's the money leaking?
Yeah, income wise, there's a lot of dimensions to this, but to dumb it down a lot, because it's always a case by case basis. But at least the income side, that's common for everybody. I think the biggest thing is looking for opportunities. Where are your opportunities right now? Where do you provide the greatest value? And when it comes to, when people ask about like, well, what should I invest in, Chris? I said, well, first off, where do you have a lot of knowledge? What do you know a lot about? Or what do you want to learn more about? And then two, where do you have passion? Like what's something that you could either put your money into or put your time and energy into that you would actually enjoy regardless of the money? I mean, the money's good. You want the money, but what's something you would do regardless of the money?
Yep.
And every time I see that those people will be successful in that arena. Interesting point. I mentioned I coached 200 people how to trade stocks and options. Even though I gave them the easiest, most the least risky way of trying to do it, the way to create more cash flow, strategy that I taught to every one of those people. What was interesting is that only a handful of them kept making money when I wasn't holding their hand anymore. And what I found out was those people were the people that loved the game regardless of the money. They weren't just in it for the mailbox money. Like I hear people talk about that with real estate. They're like, I just want the mailbox money. In fact, I hope I never deal with people.
Hey, I will say, going to the mailbox to pick up checks was a favorite pastime until my CFO made me turn it turned it into a direct deposit. It was awesome until, then there started being times where I would literally have tens of thousands of dollars. You know how you misplace a $20 bill before? I was misplacing tens of thousands of dollars of rent checks, and it drove her nuts.
There's a money leak right there, right?
Yeah, we fixed that one. I'm like, okay, got it. So, but yeah, hey, that mailbox money is cool.
Oh, no, I love mailbox money. But the problem is when people have the attitude of, I just want to get something for nothing.
Oh, that's a different story. That's a different story.
That's what I meant by it's when people call it, when people rely on it only being passive income and they think passive means do nothing. Those are the people that lose in investing. Those are the gamblers, right? But the real investors, they know that time and energy is probably 90%, and then the money's 10% of that.
Yep.
And that's where the expertise and the passion comes in, right? I mean, Robert Kiyosaki, it's no surprise that he loves real estate and oil. He loves it. Now, does that mean everybody should go invest in oil? Well, of course not. That's not the point. And not to mention, he studied it for a couple of years before he even tried to put any money into it. And that's the point is what do you really have a passion for regardless of the money? Because you'll find a way to make it successful. This happened to me in ballroom dancing. There's people that dance since they're like 3 years old. I started when I was 18, but by the time I got to my peak, I was actually beating some of those people out in competitions, even though I had maybe 5 years of experience, and that was it.
Right.
And that's the almost like that X factor, right? When it comes to making more money, whether it be in business or investing, is a big point. So I think that's it. I mean, I have one client right now. He told me, he said, I want a business and I want to do something with real estate. I said, why don't we make them one? Why don't we make them one and the same?
Oh, that's a great idea.
Now, the last few months, he's bought 2 properties, cash flowing net like $900 a month, and that's from his IRA money that was doing nothing before, and he's still got plenty of IRA money to keep using. He's just trying to leverage, use it as fast as he possibly can. I mean, he could probably at least in the next few years get at least half of his income from his job just within the next year or so. And that's what's so cool when you see that. So income wise, that's a big thing. On the flip side, on the expense side, there's lots of little ways that people lose money, whether it be taxes. If you're in business or real estate, I've noticed that people almost always, if you're profitable, you're losing at least a few $1,000s a year in taxes. That's been pretty much for my clients 100% of the time we've seen that, which hard to say. I might be conservative and say 99% because I'm sure there'll be one at some point. But so far in the last year and a half, I haven't seen anybody that's been profitable in business not free up at least a few $1,000s a year in taxes. Debt's another one. Tracking your money is another. Insurances, there's ways to leverage that and make it, less expensive, but still get more coverage so you're protected. I see all kinds of things with how you structure your money. I mean, there's all kinds of ways that people lose and leak money. Even from a mental standpoint as well as from a financial standpoint, there's so many ways. I think I counted like 24 when I decided to list them out. Even some of the things I mentioned before too of, if you're doing things just for the paycheck, not for the passion, that's another one. Oh, and by the way, on that standpoint, you hear people say, do what you love and the money will follow.
Yes.
That's bogus. I'm sorry. I've seen a lot of passionately broke people out there.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, passionately. Yes.
They're passionate about what they do, but they're flat broke. They're not making any money. But I will add this. If you do what you love that others love you doing, then
nice.
The money can follow.
Well said. Well said. Absolutely well said.
You got to have the skill set and the mindset and everything go with it.
Now, for those who have been listening this time going, I really dig what you're saying, how can they get more from you?
A great place is, like I mentioned before, my website, moneyripples.com. Great place, especially if you want to see more about some of those cash flow tips and ways to free up cash. I put the 7 top ways that my clients have freed up cash in there, where my average clients freed up $33,000 in the first year, much of that ongoing. That's in that ebook. So it's available for download for free on that website, moneyripples.com. Also, if you're a Facebook user, I am too. I've got a Money Ripples page that you can follow me there. I give like little tips and tidbits, and I like to even have fun sometimes. I haven't done an ice bucket challenge, but hey, I still like to have fun.
Understood. Well, I definitely appreciate your investment that you made here with the Cashflow Diary audience. And I know it's, the words do not return void. They will produce a return in various different ways. And I definitely am glad that you've taken the time to share your wisdom with us.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is? It's time for you to move at the speed of instruction. That simply means he gave you a website, moneyripples.com. Go there. Now, there was also another resource that I hopefully you will go and check out. It was Shadow Stats. It will begin to help you understand that sometimes what you think you know may not be what you know, but more importantly, it'll begin to hopefully light a fire so that you get some more stuff done and continue to build your cash flow. It's easier than you think, and I know you can do it. Looking forward to talking to all you guys soon. Until next time.